Okay, so get this. We've got news from February 6th, 2025, and it's like everyone just decided to turn the world upside down.
It's a day for the history books for sure.
Yeah, so we've got our usual suspects for sources, so Associated Press, Al Jazeera, Business Standard,
Yeah.
NDTV, Global News, all that good stuff.
The A team.
Exactly. So we know we're getting the real deal here. But let's just jump right in, and we're going to start with the US-Mexico border because things are getting a little intense down there.
Yeah.
Mexico is sending 10,000 National Guard troops to the border, and it's all because of President Trump's latest tariff threats.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see Mexico kind of flex their muscles a bit here.
Oh yeah? What?
They're using their economic relationship with the U.S. as leverage to try to push back on these immigration policies. It's a pretty classic power play when you think about it.
Right.
But the sheer scale of it, 10,000 troops, it's not a small number.
No.
That shows you how seriously they're taking this.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine just picturing that thousands of armed masked guards patrolling the border? That's a pretty intense image.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to point out that this isn't without risk for Mexico either. A damaged relationship with the U.S. could really hurt their own economy. So they're definitely walking a tightrope here.
For sure. Okay, so we've got tension at the border, but we're about to turn up the heat even more as we head to the Middle East.
Oh, boy.
President Trump has revealed a plan for the Gaza Strip, and the world is not happy about it.
It's causing quite a stir. This plan is drawing comparisons to some very dark periods of history.
Yeah, I was going to say it sounds familiar.
Yeah, the UN has already condemned it. They're really concerned about the possibility of ethnic cleansing and potentially another mass displacement of Palestinians.
Yeah, and it gets even more complicated because Trump is also considering sending convicted criminals from U.S. prisons to other countries.
Oh, wow.
And some people are speculating that this could be tied to the Gaza plan. So it's just adding another layer of complexity to an already extremely tense situation.
Yeah, domestically and internationally, the implications of this are huge. This could really throw gasoline on an already volatile situation.
Absolutely. And, public opinion is completely divided on this. We're seeing global condemnation. But then you have a recent poll that showed 72% of Israelis support Trump's plan.
Right.
So it really highlights how deeply rooted this conflict is.
Absolutely. There are no easy answers here.
Yep.
And any solution is going to face pushback from one side or the other.
Okay, so we've got border tensions, a potential powder keg in Gaza, and now it looks like some major players are stepping back from global cooperation.
This is concerning.
Yeah. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is boycotting the G20 summit. He's accusing the host country, South Africa, of having an anti-American agenda, and he's specifically calling out their stance on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion,
You're right.
and climate change policies.
It's interesting because this and Argentina's recent withdrawal from the World Health Organization under President Milei really points to a concerning trend. It seems like we're seeing more and more countries disengaging from these global organizations.
Yeah, and, this isn't the first time the U.S. has pulled back from the WHO OPO. President Trump initiated a withdrawal during his previous term. So it makes you wonder, are we headed towards a world where every country is just going it alone? And if that's the case, what does that mean for tackling these big global problems that really need everyone to be on board, like climate change or the next pandemic?
Right, that's the big question, isn't it? Can we effectively address these global challenges without some level of international cooperation?
Right.
If countries are increasingly putting their own national interests first, it's going to be very difficult to tackle these issues head on.
It's true. I mean, imagine another pandemic hits and countries aren't willing to share information or resources. That's a scary thought.
It's definitely a sobering thought, and it highlights the urgent need for finding ways to bridge these divides and build a more collaborative global approach.
Absolutely. All right, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about a potential glimmer of hope on the trade front. The U.S. Postal Service is getting ready to start accepting packages from China and Hong Kong again.
Interesting.
This comes after a freeze that was caused by President Trump's tariffs on Chinese goods. So,
This is interesting.
yeah.
Some experts are interpreting this as a sign that maybe, just maybe, the trade war between the U.S. and China is starting to cool down.
So wait, hold on for a sec. For anyone who might not remember all the details of the trade war, can you give us a quick recap of what those tariffs actually did?
Sure. So basically, Trump imposed tariffs on a wide range of Chinese goods, which made them more expensive for Americans to buy.
Okay.
The goal was to protect American businesses, but it also ended up leading to higher prices for consumers, and it disrupted supply chains.
Right.
And that freeze on packages from China and Hong Kong, that was a direct result of those tariffs.
Okay, so this resumption of package deliveries, that's a big deal for people who buy things online and businesses that rely on international shipping.
Absolutely. It could be a good sign for the overall relationship between the U.S. and China, too. A thawing of trade tensions might create an opportunity for more dialogue on other issues where the two countries disagree,
Right.
but we have to be cautious.
Yeah,
We've seen false starts before.
good point.
Yeah.
We'll definitely be keeping an eye on this to see if it leads to any real lasting changes. Okay, before we move on, there are a few other global developments that we should mention. First up's the IAEA, that's the International Atomic Energy Agency. They're sounding the alarm about nuclear risks in Ukraine.
Oh.
They're warning that these ongoing Russian attacks on Ukrainian power grids are pushing us closer to a potential disaster.
Yeah, it's a really stark reminder that the conflict in Ukraine is going into its third year now,
I know, it's crazy.
and it still poses a very serious threat to global security.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a potential showdown brewing in the tech world.
Yeah.
Elon Musk is suing OpenAI, the company that's headed by Sam Altman, and it looks like this case might actually go to trial.
Wow.
This is huge because it could have major implications for the future of artificial intelligence.
This could shape regulations development, even ethical considerations around AI. It's definitely a case to watch.
Yeah, for sure. And lastly, on a more somber note, the Aga Khan, the spiritual leader of the Ismaili Muslims, has passed away at the age of 88. His grandson is set to succeed him, which marks a new chapter for the Ismaili community.
Yeah, the Aga Khan's legacy is one of immense influence, not just within the Ismaili community, but globally. His philanthropic work through the Aga Khan Development Network has touched so many lives.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that individuals, even those in spiritual leadership roles, can have a profound impact on the world stage.
Yeah, it really puts things in perspective, doesn't it? Even amidst all this chaos, the world keeps spinning.
Yeah, it's a lot to process,
Mhm.
border standoffs, international power plays, legal battles with tech giants. It feels like the whole world's on edge.
And it all circles back to this question of how do we navigate a world that's becoming more interconnected, but where global cooperation seems to be fading.
It's a tough one. On one hand, you see countries like Argentina and the U.S. kind of retreating from these big organizations like the WHO. And on the other hand, you have this potential thaw in trade relations between the U.S. and China. It's like we're getting mixed signals.
Exactly. And all of this is happening against this backdrop of rising nationalism and a focus on each country's own interests. I mean, look at Rubio skipping the G20 and criticizing South Africa's policies. That's a pretty strong statement.
It is. It makes you wonder, is this just a temporary thing, or are we heading towards a future where every country is basically just looking out for itself?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it's especially concerning when you think about issues like climate change. If countries can't find common ground and work together to reduce emissions, we're all going to feel the consequences.
This is a scary thought.
Yeah.
But I guess it also highlights how important it is to understand these global dynamics, right? The more we know about what's happening around the world, the better prepared we'll be to deal with these uncertain times.
Absolutely. Staying informed is crucial, but it's also about engaging with the information critically. Don't just take everything at face value. Dig deeper, question assumptions, and consider different viewpoints.
So it's not just about knowing the headlines, it's about understanding the WHY behind them.
Exactly. For example, with Trump's Gaza plan, it's easy to get caught up in the immediate controversy. But to really get it, you need to look at the historical context, the political motivations, and the potential long-term consequences.
And what about the U.S. Postal Service resuming packages from China? Is this really a sign of improving relations, or is it just a temporary move driven by economics?
It's a good question. We've seen previous attempts at reconciliation between the U.S. and China kind of fizzle out. So the key will be looking for those follow-up actions. Do we see more tariffs being lifted? Do negotiations on other contentious issues start back up? Those will be the real signs of lasting change.
So we need to look beyond the surface and see the bigger picture. It's like putting together a puzzle.
Exactly. And remember, even when things seem bleak, there's always hope for positive change. Think about the Aga Khan's legacy. He dedicated his life to making the world a better place. And that kind of commitment to positive action, whether it's on a global scale or a local scale, it's something we can all be inspired by.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that individuals can make a difference. Speaking of individuals making waves, let's circle back to that Elon Musk and OpenAI lawsuit. That one feels like a potential game changer, not just for the tech world, but for society as a whole.
It really does. AI is advancing at an incredible pace, and this case could set a precedent for how we regulate and control its development. It's one of those topics that feels like science fiction, But the reality is AI is already impacting our lives in so many ways.
And the potential implications are pretty mind-blowing. I mean, imagine AI being used to diagnose diseases, personalize education, or even automate entire industries. It's exciting, but it's also a little bit unsettling.
That's why this lawsuit is so important. It raises these fundamental questions about the balance between innovation and responsibility. How do we harness the power of AI for good while also protecting against potential risks and misuse?
And who gets to decide that governments, tech companies, individuals? It feels like we're at a crossroads here, and the choices we make now are going to have huge consequences down the line.
It's a reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping the future of technology. Staying informed, engaging in conversations, and speaking up about our concerns can help ensure that AI is developed and used ethically and responsibly.
So it's not just about sitting back and watching these developments unfold. It's about actively participating in the conversation.
Exactly. And that brings us back to why it's so important to understand these complex issues. The more we know about the potential benefits and risks of AI, the better equipped we'll be to advocate for policies that promote responsible innovation.
It all comes down to knowledge, right?
Mm.
Knowledge is power. And in this case, it could be the key to shaping a future where technology actually benefits humanity.
Well said. And with that, I think it's time to turn things over to you. You've been listening to us unpack these global events, but now we want to hear from you.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? What stood out to you from all these headlines? Anything particularly surprising or maybe even a little bit concerning?
Yeah, we've covered a lot today, from those tense border situations to the ups and downs of trade wars, and even the future of AI. It's easy to feel kind of overwhelmed by it all.
Absolutely.
But we really encourage you to take a step back and think about how these stories connect to your own life,
Mm.
your community, your future.
For sure.
Like maybe you're thinking about how that US-China trade situation could affect the stuff you buy online.
Right.
Or maybe you're worried about what those rising tensions in the Middle East mean for global security.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're even feeling inspired to learn more about AI, especially after hearing about that lawsuit between Elon Musk and OpenAI.
I mean, the possibilities are endless.
They really are.
But whatever your reaction is, remember that staying informed is an active process.
It's not just about reading headlines. It's about digging deeper, asking questions, forming your own opinions.
Exactly. And it's about talking to people about this stuff.
Yeah.
Have conversations with your friends, family, colleagues about these global events. Debate the implications. Share your concerns. Explore different perspectives.
Absolutely. We're all in this together, right? The world is a complex and interconnected place.
It really is.
And the more we understand about what's happening around us, the better equipped we are to navigate the challenges and opportunities that come our way.
So true. Okay, so we've explored some pretty heavy stuff today, but before we wrap up, I want to leave you with something I've been thinking about.
Okay, I'm listening.
We've talked about these big systemic issues like trade wars, political maneuvering, global organizations losing influence. And it's easy to feel like these things are totally out of our control.
It's true, these global forces can feel so massive and impersonal.
Yeah, but then I think about someone like the Aga Khan and the huge impact he made through his philanthropic work. It reminds me that even with all these massive global challenges, individual actions can still make a difference.
I totally agree. It's easy to feel powerless when you look at the scale of these problems, but it's important to remember that change often starts at the grassroots level.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So what can you do?
Yeah.
Well, for starters, you're already doing it. By
Yeah.
listening to this deep dive, you're engaging with these complex issues and expanding your understanding of the world.
Right.
And from there, the possibilities are endless. Maybe you're inspired to support organizations that are working on the issues you care about. Or maybe you'll start having more thoughtful conversations with the people around you.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll even decide to dive deeper into a specific topic that really sparked your interest. Every action, no matter how small it all, contributes to creating a more informed and engaged society.
And that in turn can lead to real tangible change.
It can.
Remember, history is shaped not just by global forces, but by the collective actions of individuals who choose to make a difference.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we encourage you to hold on to that sense of agency. The world is complex,
Yeah.
but it's also full of possibilities.
Yeah.
So stay curious, stay engaged, and never underestimate the power of your own actions.
Well said. And on that note, thank you for joining us on this journey of exploration. We'll be back soon with more in-depth analysis and thought-provoking conversations. Until then, stay informed and stay inspired.